Welcome to AI and Automation in Action, where we show business leaders how to turn AI from a buzzword into measurable operational leverage. This podcast is for CEOs, COOs, and technology decision makers who are tired of manual processes, disconnected systems, and underperforming teams, and want to deploy AI and automation in a way that is scalable, secure, and compliant. In every episode, we dissect real client implementations, the architecture, the tools, the integration strategy, and the governance controls, so you can see exactly what works in the real world. If you're serious about operational efficiency and responsible AI adoption, you're in the right place.
Well, hey there, Hunter. Welcome back. I'm excited to talk with you today. I understand you've got some pretty cool automations that you've built in the last week, and I want to kind of step through what that use case was and the details around it. So without further ado, why don't you kind of step us through the challenge that we were looking to solve for in the last week?
Yep. So thanks for having me again, of course, Shane. The challenge that we saw with this organization was that they were needing to automate their process in which they were going out to two websites, one that was giving them macros that they needed to feed into another website, which then was taking those macros and providing them with a generated meal plan. It had the meals, the directions, the ingredients, and even the grocery page. And this would later be used, they would take it into Adobe and add their custom content pages, make it look pretty and in the format they were wanting it to be. And this process ultimately ended up taking them between an hour and a half each time, simply because of that full transition and then needing to get it into that pretty customer-facing deliverable format. And so what we did was we created a website. They can enter their macros, all of that information, age, name, on this landing page. And from there, they can click Generate Meal Plan. What that does is it goes out to both of those websites. So it gets the macros. Once it has the macros, it then feeds that information into that website and then generates a meal plan. Once that meal plan is generated, it is automatically in that customer-facing format. So it has the cover page, content page with table of contents, hyperlinks so they can jump and navigate through each week or jump directly to their gym workout plan, all of that. So it fully automated that portion and relieved them from having to spend an hour and a half for each one.
Manually doing it. Wow.
Yep.
So, and I remember when this was brought to us, one of the biggest constraints they had was manpower. So basically, they've had exponential growth in the last year in the fitness space, looking to grow and be able to add more clients. But their main constraint was someone being able to take that information, manually compile that data, use Adobe to go in and physically create those documents so that it's pretty and in their branding and everything. And that was a pretty big constraint. And understanding now that they were spending up to an hour and a half doing that per person, I can see how that's a huge constraint. I know originally, as you and I were talking about this, we had looked into an API call to handle this, basically where the softwares could talk directly to each other, but we ran into some issues there, right?
Correct. Yep. So with that second website, the first website fully available in terms of API access, but the second website, it was limited. All we could do was create or delete a new company. And what we ended up having to do was we pivoted to a different solution. We call it a PDF builder solution. And so what it is, it still automates 80% of this process for the customer. What they're having to do is go into the second website, generate that meal plan, and they have these PDF deliverables, if you would, for each week, weeks 1 all the way up to 13 weeks potentially. But they take those PDF deliverables, upload it into this new website that we've created. It's a similar landing page, but it doesn't have all of those other items. It just allows them to upload PDFs. Once they upload those items, they can click generate, And it's, instead of going out to that second website's API, we're actually feeding those weak uploads to Gemini API. And so Gemini is analyzing each week PDF upload and extracting that data and then getting it in the format that is needed so it can then generate those custom meal plans like it was doing before.
So not quite as straightforward as a direct API integration, because those, as we've mentioned before, direct API, as long as you have full capabilities through the API, that's the cleanest, easiest, and fastest way. But a lot of times we're restricted by API limits, API functionality, or even API cost. And any of those can factor in whether it makes sense to go direct API or not. And so what you were able to do is say, okay, I've got a constraint here that we can't solve through the API. So we took PDFs, manual documents, and you leveraged an AI functionality to go in and parse that data out of the.
Man, I wish I could share an example and show it on screen, but it is truly fascinating with the things that you can have AI learn in terms of even unstructured data. There was items that were bleeding from one page on to the next, and AI was able to decipher and analyze that belonged to the previous page and it needed to be included for that meal. So it's really cool, but also mind-blowing to see some of the things that AI can do. But it's great that we were able to get them a solution with it.
Yeah, so that's really creative way to approach that, and I appreciate the way that you handled it, because basically now, instead of having direct calls to API, we're taking a static document, leveraging AI to analyze that document, pull the relevant information out, tell it what we want to feed into our automation, and that process does what we were doing before with someone manually typing that in. Now it's automatically feeding that into the document, giving them a finished product. In terms of time to do this currently, I know you said that it was taking up to an hour and a half for someone to manually go type all that information in previously. What kind of time savings are we looking at with this?
Yep. So now at the end, after they feed all those items in, click generate. It takes them about 10 to 13 minutes, and that's with a full 13-week upload. If they only include 4 weeks, you're probably looking at a 4 to 5 minute time in terms of a turnaround, but that is all in the back end. As a reminder, they're just clicking generate, and then they're able to get up, go get a new cup of coffee, or open a new tab and continue working on something else, whatever that may look like for them. But it fully removes them from that process. It then it'll pop up in their browser once it's available automatically in Chrome as a download, and they can open that. And really, that 10 minutes I say it takes for this process to run is what it's going to be for them to open that PDF and review it and make sure it's what they expect it to be. And the other thing I do want to make sure I call out here is the PDFs that we are uploading and feeding to Gemini. We made sure that there was not any customer-facing data in that. So it was just the meals and the meal data and like the ingredients and the steps. Just want to make sure that's clear, because that is, again, a public model that is being used, but it is restricted via an API access key. So again, just to be clear, never feed restricted or confidential information into a public model there.
Absolutely. So that's crazy. We're seeing an 8 or a 9x return on this one automation. And this is something that we could potentially continue to build upon. Once this is there, we could kick off other automations that when it's done, it could go into their CRM and actually start doing work from there as well. But that's what we go back to when it comes to automation. It's building blocks, and every little block that you build is a tool that you can use in another automation, right?
Exactly. And like you said, continue layering on that, whether it be storing that PDF that's exported directly in their platform or their system, so they don't have to sit there. Maybe they just kick it off and close the tab, and then later just go into their system and it's stored and they can review it there. Whatever that looks like, that is what's amazing about automation. And what innovative automations can bring to the table is we can fit your specific custom needs.
That's awesome. And I appreciate the fact that you took a challenge that first looked pretty simple and straightforward, got creative with it, and now we've got this really cool automation. And it goes to the point that it doesn't matter where your data lives, how it lives, or what you want to do with it. There's likely some type of automation that can be done with that. It all comes down to where's the most cost savings when it comes to time and effort. So great job, Hunter. Loved hearing about what you were able to build there.
Thank you, Shane. Thank you for having me. Excited for the next one.
Yep. Looking forward to the next week's discussion. Thanks, Hunter.
Thanks for tuning in to AI and Automation in Action. If today's conversation sparked ideas about how AI or automation could improve your operations, we'd love to continue that discussion with you. Join us next time as we showcase another real-world implementation and break down how to deploy AI responsibly and effectively. And if you want to brainstorm with our team, email us anytime at ideas@innovativeautomations.ai. Until next time.